Warning, the following broadcast is offensive, marginally funny, and contains no educational value whatsoever. It is intended for immature audiences only.
Welcome to another edition of That Riot Show. This is your host, Big Fat John.
And Judo, Larry M.
You ever see a steam pipe when too much pressure builds up in a boiler or something? What happens?
Are you saying that's a pipe over there?
Yeah, that blows off steam. Relief valve. The relief valve. Phil's an engineer. He understands. Has a relief valve. Why do you think God gave you a dick? It's to avoid stress, man. He needs a blowjob, but not just any old blowjob.
Isn't that funny? Women cause stress, and then they can relieve it.
There you go.
This is fucked up. Now, work up all your science very quickly. We're going to give you two in 2 seconds. Then work it up. Chlamydia.
Yep.
Okay. 1 in 15. They had an abstinence policy, but 1 in 15 chlamydia.
Yep.
Go.
I'll tell you exactly what it is from a scientific standpoint. I'd be happy to. You know what it is? You can't stop teenagers from fucking.
This is fucked up.
I know I'm getting old. This very week, I've sat on my balls twice.
This is fucked up.
Unfortunately, on this visual medium, you have to put up with this. Look at this. See, Larry, feel that.
No.
Oh, you're gay.
This is fucked up.
Hey, Phil, what kind of time we got left? I can't see it from here. What you got? 10 minutes? Lucky for you folks, there's 10. Whoa, what did you have for dinner? Jesus Christ, that belch.
Jesus Christ.
Oh. Smells like a Mexican's ass. Whoa, what the hell's going on? Oh.
This is fucked up.
All right, welcome again to the Riot. Always good to join the folks here, Larry, for a show. I, of course, am none other than your host, Big Fat John.
And Judo, Larry.
All right. Now, you know, Larry, I have to say, on the heels of last week's episode,
Yes.
lots of positive response in social media for the new look Riot.
New look Riot, and did they say anything in particular about the segments that we did?
Yes. So it turns out that Phil was probably right, even though I'm loath to give him any credit.
Yeah.
That segments actually do work on the show, Larry.
Yes, they do. And Phil was not yaying what he just said. He's actually eating Chipotle.
Good Chipotle. Good Chipotle. Give them a free plug.
Yeah.
Well, Phil may need a plug of a different nature later, but...
Have you seen the photo of the black hole from outer space? That's what your butthole looks like.
Exactly.
After Chipotle.
Exactly, except it works in the opposite direction of a black hole.
Hey now.
Instead of sucking everything in, it expels it. Just bam. Burning asshole. Anyway, this is the Riot. Listen, I want to let everyone know that before we go any further, there's always the mandatory pimping we have to do. So Phil, do me a favor, drop the Chipotle for a second and do the Scroll O Podcasts. Scroll O Podcasts. Basically, just go anywhere podcasts are found of any sort. And check us out. Download the Riot there if you don't want to watch us on YouTube. So go to iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podomatic, Google Play, iTunes, all of them. Just go check us out. You saw it on the scroll. Download us. We really appreciate that. Of course, also our home base, thatriotshow.com. Thatriotshow.com. All the past shows, segments, everything that we've ever done is on that website. Go check it out. And Larry, last but not least, we want people to follow us on social media. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/thatriotshow. Interestingly enough and easily enough. And then also you can check us out on Twitter. And quite honestly, that's where all the action is, Larry. It's on Twitter.
Yep. It's always on Twitter, and John is always on Twitter.
And by the way, I'm happy to report my ban list grew by 3 last week.
Your what group?
The list of people who banned me.
Oh, banned.
Like, I know we have a lot of, or blocked me rather, I should say. I know we have a lot of celebrities who blocked me. Larry Cher, Fugglesang, I think.
Fugglesang, the Pete Dominic band? Yeah,
No, Pete Dominic has a band, and he just likes yelling at me for some unknown reason.
How about Dino Badala?
Yeah, Dino Badala blocked me. I can't even see what he says anymore. But aside from the celebs, I like it when I piss off people that I've never tweeted at, I've never done anything. It's just, they just end up blocking me just because someone else tweeted something we said at them, Larry. Okay. So you gotta always keep a lookout for that.
Yeah, the usual left-wing morons who can't listen to another opinion.
They really are in a position to just be constantly offended.
Yeah.
Even when there's no offense, even if you apologize, they just don't. It really is. They're in a position to just constantly be offended.
Yeah, they're looking always for any way they can twist what you're saying, and then just say, "Well, I'm offended," or "It's racist," or.
Yeah. Well, the motto here at the Riot Show: "Fuck your feelings. They don't matter."
Yep.
At all to me.
All that matters is the First Amendment. So.
Yeah. By the way, Larry, have you seen this thing where people are walking around saying this is a free speech zone? This is a First Amendment zone?
No, I haven't. But
yeah.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah. By the way, let me inform you of something. There is no free speech zone. You know what a free speech zone is? Everywhere. Everywhere.
This country is a free speech
zone.
Yeah.
This country. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go fuck yourselves too on that one while you're at it. Seriously, learn to be offended and not fucking lose your minds. Really, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, but this business of just being offended by like
everything,
every movie, every comment, and
and listen, aside from it being un-American, like we've said 100 times on the show, there's nothing more un-American than someone trying to shut down speech. The most un-American thing. And let me tell you something, it is such a passion of mine that I think, Larry, me and Phil may have to do a documentary on this.
Oh my goodness.
That's what I'm thinking.
Are we thinking?
Phil, what do you think, Phil? Oscar next year?
Yes, sir.
Oscar, damn right. We're going to do something on free speech, Larry, a documentary.
Yeah.
So you don't have to watch documentaries by that fat fuck Michael Moore all the time. And yeah, I'm a fat fuck, and I'm calling him a fat fuck. Because he's just fucking bananas.
Yeah, he's completely lost his mind. The only thing which is really cool, his last two movies bombed.
Yes.
Like crazy, which I took as maybe his influence isn't
it started
quite what it
waning,
used to be, right? Because a lot of people, even leftists who like him, and I've said this, they didn't even notice. He made a movie called Michael Moore in Trumpland.
Okay.
This movie went nowhere. It was like in and out of the theaters like that, almost straight to video.
Right.
And then he made the Where Next to Invade. Like he did like these stupid movies, and they're not picking up. They're not getting the same buzz as like Bowling for Columbine or Roger and Me, which was actually a halfway decent movie.
Well, what happened, I think, with his original stuff. Especially early on, was people didn't realize that a lot of it were setups.
Oh yeah,
and very, very highly manipulated settings and context.
Right.
But I think as conservative filmmakers started to sort of expose what he did and show you raw footage and stuff, some people really came to the conclusion that it wasn't really documentary as much as it was fiction.
Yeah,
and I think that put off some people, like especially the. Dare I use an old word, hoity-toity crowd, Larry? You know what I mean? But, so Michael Moore, fuck you. We don't care. Okay, let's get to the topics of the week, Larry. We've got some stuff to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about, because even though we promised not too much Trump, we have to talk about this. The full Mueller Report out, Larry.
Nice.
It is out. And Larry, everyone said that when the full report comes out, not the Attorney General's summary.
Redacted.
Not Trump's tweets about him being the best president ever who's got nothing to hide. None of that stuff.
That's not true?
No, it might be. But we're saying, everyone said, we want to see the report. Because that's going to put shit to rest.
Right.
Larry, the whole report came out.
Yes.
Any shit get put to rest?
Nope. In fact, more threats or more investigations. They're trying to get his taxes. Good luck being audited. The taxes, and now I heard another one today. I don't even get a chance to talk about this in pre-show, but there is, the whole school scandal with Lori Lava and all that stuff. Now they're saying it's very possible that Trump's father got him into school based on the same concept.
Well,
so now the point is, they're just the people, the Nadler and shit.
Yeah.
These people are just out of their minds. They won't give up, and it's just going to be more investigations.
Yeah. So let's deal a little bit with this and see what we see. So look, obviously Trump, after the full report came out, had Barr go out, hold his own press conference early Thursday morning. It was like, of course, they get the first crack at the spinning of the situation. Right. Then, of course, you had Pelosi and Henny Stoyer, right?
Right.
All these guys and gals in the House come out. Listen, Elizabeth Warren said she read it and she thinks impeachment is necessary.
Yeah, we got to move to impeachment.
Look, I read it. I consulted with a couple of attorneys that I know. Actually, one of the best, if you ever get a chance, Danny Schmutter. He's often filed briefs with SCOTUS. I know he's working on some big Second Amendment cases right now. A good friend of mine from high school reached out to him to get his opinion as well. And we really inconclusive. Right. I'm not even going to say the president's exonerated. I'm not going to say it's evidence of guilt from what I read and from what I've talked to some people who read it as well, Larry. I think I see a lot of nonsense going on, yeah. And I'm trying to understand. So here's the first thing. I think everyone, even the Democrats, have come to the conclusion that no collusion with Russia officially. Right. Like, I don't think that's part of their drumbeat anymore. I mean, yeah, you're going to have some fringe people who think he did, but the truth of the matter is, I don't think there's evidence of that. I really don't. At least nothing solid, right? But this whole thing now rests on the whole obstruction issue, right? So let me first say the following. I don't know that legally you can have obstruction where there's no underlying crime. Maybe you can. Maybe technically you can. But both politically and from a prosecutorial point of view, Larry, right. Like if this was a case where it wasn't a political case to be tried in public opinion, but like say this was a DA in your local municipality, would you trust somebody with obstruction when you had no underlying crime? Like, what did he obstruct them from?
Yeah.
Right? Now, I guess maybe technically, according to the law, you could have some charges just for being a prick and being an asshole and not complying and not cooperating and all that. Maybe. But on a very practical level, what do you think? You should, like, really have obstruction when there's no evidence?
No, if there's no underlying obstruction, there's right. No, you have to let it go. The problem that I have with that is I think they're just, it's more just twisting and bending and just trying to make it work.
Right.
So that they can stick it to him and maybe, I don't think they're going to go through with impeachment, right. But they want to keep talking about it and they want to smear him all the way through to the end of his first term.
Yes. There's a political advantage.
Right, and they want their candidates, all million of them now, right. to pick up on this and to start, we want to keep the drumbeat going. We want to keep it going. I think what you found with this thing is, all right, fine, there was no collusion, okay. We talked about it, 500 subpoenas, right. 280 search warrants, whatever the hell it was. Okay, fine. But it does look also like, on the other hand, maybe stuff was done that doesn't meet the legal requirement of collusion and breaking the law and subverting an election. But it definitely looks like
dirty.
Dirty, but it looks like dirty. Really like this stereotype of skanky business practices.
Yes.
And this looks like a rich guy doing some shitty things with the criminals and other knuckleheads in Russia.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about when Trump made a remark about going after Hillary Clinton's emails.
And he said, I wish the Russians would.
Right, and the KGB cranked up a couple of people on it.
Literally.
Used to be the KGB.
Yeah, literally hours after Trump made that infamous remark during the campaign, I wish the Russians would hack the DNC, right? This Mueller report finds that literally within 30, 40 hours of him making that remark, there were Russian actors sent emails to the DNC with malicious code to try to hack into the DNC, and it's documented. So, but the point is, did Trump saying that publicly rise to collusion, or did he make a joke and then the Russians tried to? It really, that's the level that I think you're talking. It's like close, but.
It's like a gray area, but you don't really know. Like, I get the feeling he did something skanky.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
But ultimately, No collusion. So it really is. It really is a big.
It becomes a political.
But see, my other thing with Trump is you never, because of the way he is.
Yes.
Because of the way he talks and all
the way he
this
acts.
stupid stuff. You never know what's serious, what's not serious. Like for instance, last week we were talking about Julian Assange, right? And the WikiLeaks. So now they have Trump in the past week, or just as an example, and he's talking about, he goes, don't really follow it, don't care about, WikiLeaks and Assange. It was like old news, like never really cared about it. Like he did his usual routine.
Right.
And I was watching, even on Fox, they showed like a montage of him going, I love WikiLeaks, greatest thing in the world. He goes, love it. He goes, how can you not want to read it? He goes, dump all that stuff on the Clintons and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So with this guy, you never know what's real, what's not.
But also, it really does show you how he operates in life, in his private business, because when you look at some of the stuff that was in the report, like for example, when he was told Mueller was investigating him, that he just literally sat back and said, oh shit, I'm fucked. That's it, my presidency is over.
Oh, wow.
That he asked his inner circle on several occasions to literally obstruct justice. Now, the reason it's not obstruction is, fortunately for him, the people around him didn't do what he asked them to do.
Right.
Like, I forget the name of his lawyer at the time.
Yeah.
But the guy said, if I do this, we're all going to go down.
Is that Skakelo?
I forget his name.
Sekelo?
Yeah, something like that.
James Sekelo?
No, I don't remember the kid's name. But it was some lawyer that said to him basically, I'm not doing it because it's not in your own best interests, And then he would wait a week or two, and then Trump would forget about it. Do you know what I mean? It was that sort of environment where we've always joked, it's like, who's the adult in the White House? Like, who's putting Trump to bed every night? Who's telling him to stop playing with Twitter? Like, whoever that adult is, at some point prevented him from actually committing crimes. But you could see in Trump's temperament, and this is what pisses a lot of the liberals off, very clearly, the guy acted guilty.
Right.
Whether he was or not. And I used to have a joke during the OJ trial 20 years ago,
Because he's got to weigh in on it.
Right. 20 years ago, I said of the OJ trial, those idiots in LAPD tried to frame a guilty man. Do you know what I mean? OJ was guilty, but the LAPD had to make, they had to plant evidence to make it look even worse.
They didn't want him to get away with it. So they're like, we'll put this shit there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that you have sort of the same situation with Trump with, he may not have known what was going on, or if anything was going on, but just the fact that someone was investigating him, his reaction was, fuck him, make life miserable for him. Right. You know why? Because that's the way he would handle it in business. Right? If you're a CEO in business and someone says, hey man, we just found out we have a corporate spy downstairs. They're trying to steal our patents or whatever.
Right.
Right? Someone like Trump would be like, you get down there, you make that son of a bitch miserable, you cut off access for him, blah, 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 blah. That's the way he's used to I'm not justifying it, but I'm just saying, that's the way he's used to reacting.
That's his usual.
And by the way, for you Trump rubes, that's why experience matters.
Right.
Right? A politician who's been in politics for any sort of length of time knows you don't run around a room full of people yelling shit that might look like you're guilty.
Right, just by virtue of bringing it up. And it not only shows like you're worried about it, even if you're innocent, then everyone's going to start looking at you like, why are you doing this? If you're innocent,
exactly.
You don't need to be blabbing.
Now, for you liberals, I have to caution you on this.
Yes.
I've heard so many liberals, both on TV, on social media, say, well, look, he must be guilty, because if he wasn't guilty, why would he think he was fucked? If he wasn't guilty, why would he run around trying to get people to stop cooperating with Mueller? That's the wrong type of thinking, and let me explain to you why. It's the similar thing of saying, like, well, if you're not guilty, you shouldn't let police into your house without a warrant. If you're not guilty, why would you take the Fifth Amendment? Right? Like, you have to understand, just because you're exercising your rights of non-compliance, it doesn't mean you're guilty.
Right.
It just means, shit, I may say something stupid that then gets taken out of context. I'd rather keep my mouth shut. Right? You know these rules. Like, if a cop comes to your door, knocks on the door and says, hey, can I come in and talk? Any lawyer worth his salt will tell you, you don't invite the cop in. You walk outside to talk to the cop. Right? you never let a cop into your house unless you want him to be.
Yeah, they always point out that other thing, though, like if you get pulled over.
Yeah.
There's no law that says you have to roll the window down all the way and talk to. You can open it like that much and just go, hi, how are you?
You don't even, like if you have a speaker, you don't even have to roll down your window. Because then the cop can see if you've got a funny smell. It's used for justification of, search and seizure. So there's a lot of that shit. So for you liberals, please keep in mind, the fact that Trump acted guilty doesn't mean he's guilty. It just means he's an asshole.
Right. And this is how he responds to everything.
Right.
Like every little bit of, like anything he perceives as a slight.
Yeah.
Or anything, and of course, anything he doesn't like is fake news.
Yeah, which he already said 100 times.
Yeah.
We were listening to him before we came in. They were asking him about the report itself. Because don't forget, when the initial report in its summary form came out and said no collusion, Trump was like, chest out, Mueller's a good man, excellent report, the best report ever, I'm exonerated.
This proves CNN is fake news.
Fake news.
He had to do an
failing New York Times.
Yeah, he had to do an end zone dance and spike the ball. He wasn't smart enough to go and say, look, can we move on now?
Right. Now that the people are reading it and all this shit is coming up, what did he say today, Larry? Fake news, stupid report, waste of money. I don't understand why we wasted all this money.
Presidential harassment.
Presidential harassment. Witch hunt. Yeah, it's like just shut the fuck up. Hoax, whatever it was. Yeah. So you gotta take that with a grain of salt. Now, did anybody around Trump collude? Interestingly enough, yeah, basically, the Mueller report said that there may have been evidence of collusion, especially that meeting of Don Jr., Ivanka, Jared Kushner, Manafort, and 2 or 3 other people in Trump Tower where there were Russian agents involved and passing internal campaign data. Ultimately, Mueller said he wasn't sure to recommend collusion in that case because he wasn't sure if the parties involved were smart enough to, or comprehended criminal intent. Meaning, in essence, he thought Don Jr. was too fucking stupid to understand that he was breaking the law.
And I would like to be the first to say I agree with that assessment.
Yeah. So think about that. He basically said, I don't think, Now, again, for those of you that are going to jump up and say, well, just because they didn't know they were breaking the law,
ignorance of the law
is no excuse. Yeah. Fair enough. But may I remind you that when Comey said the same thing about Clinton and those insecure emails and classified documents being passed forth, all of you jumped to her defense to say, well, there was no intent. So even though she did it, she didn't mean to do it, so you really can't arrest her for that. Well, be consistent. If you think Don Jr. and Ivanka and Kushner need to go to jail because they did it without criminal intent, you have to admit that Clinton is in the same boat. Right. And for you Republicans, same thing. Right? If you think Don Jr. needs to skate because he's too much of a fuck up, then the same thing goes for Clinton. All right? Mm-hmm. So you gotta again, play it even, Larry. Even keel.
Yeah, but that's not what goes on in politics.
No, of course not.
It's all party politics. Yeah. It's all our guy's good, your guy's bad. I mean, we cover this. Whether it was the Republicans looking into Benghazi, whether it's the Democrats now with the Mueller report, and this is actually the ramifications of all this going forward go way beyond Donald Trump. You're really getting into a culture now where nothing gets done in D.C., nothing.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's all about, your guy got elected or your woman got elected. Investigate. They did something, we're going to find it, and if they don't, we'll just throw a bunch of shit out there and just say that happens. This, and I'm very serious, this could be now for the future. Everybody who gets elected, there's just going to be endless investigations, and they all have the power to start investigations or to spread rumors.
Well, the ones that control the House.
Yeah, but you can see this kind of developing now. I mean, you're already, even in the Senate, the whole thing, anybody who's up for the Supreme Court is officially now the worst person in the history of the world. Yeah. So it's a very bad, and look, I was watching 60 Minutes last week, and they were doing a thing on Pelosi. And even Leslie Stahl, who's pretty much a liberal, even she goes, how do you tell people? She goes, clearly, she goes, nothing is getting done in D.C. She goes, what do you say to the average person? And Pelosi goes, well, I've only been speaker now for 3 months. She goes, well, I'm not really talking about that. Yeah. But she kept trying to limit because she didn't want to admit that nothing is going to, forget gridlock. that would be a step up.
I love gridlock, by the way.
Yeah, I know. John doesn't want the government to work at all.
But you know what's interesting also is even now within the Democratic camp, you see these fissures because Pelosi and Hoyer. Well, Hoyer was the first one to say it's not worth impeaching him. It's too close to the elections. There really isn't much here. Plus, it would die in the Senate anyway. There's no reason for this.
Right.
Pelosi kind of put her strap on and told him to shut up. You know what I mean? Just shut the fuck up. But now even I heard her say, like, it may not be the most prudent thing and really not under consideration right now. But that doesn't sit well with all the radical lefties that got elected, like with the AOCs and the Omars and the Talibs and all these people. It doesn't sit well with them because they got elected on the fire and brimstone platform
they got the
of the radical left. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see. Now, again, we all know, unless there's video of Trump sucking Putin's dick in exchange for, like, campaign secrets, Larry, right? The Senate would never rule to get Trump out of office. They'd never vote for it. The House may impeach him, you know. Just like with Clinton, right? You might get an impeachment, but it wouldn't go.
Yeah, you know what? I got to say, and we've talked about this. That would be a huge mistake. It's really bad for the country. All this impeachment stuff. Stop it. You know what? Your chance to get rid of him is in 2020.
Yes.
Make sure you've got a good candidate. Why you're trying to eliminate all the white males, I don't know. But even Beetlejuice, I call him. But
what is it? How'd you pronounce it?
Buttigieg,
something like that.
Something in
I have to figure that out.
But he
something very close to butt plug. But I'm
yeah.
not sure.
But him, Bernie, Beto, Biden, they don't want these people. I mean, I don't get it. But the Democrats, your solution is to come up with a real ticket and something that you could say, look, Donald Trump, the religious fanatic who works for him, who calls his wife mother. I mean, you know, like, get a ticket together that can win. And even though it's going to upset you, probably your best ticket is going to be like Biden, Kamala Harris, or Beto and Elizabeth Warren, like some combination. But if and this is important for them, if they're going to do that whole thing with the anti-white male, that's not going over.
Well,
that's going over like with the college crowd and the left-wing coups.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not going to go over in the sense of anti-white male. I think anti-establishment white males. So they're trying to see that Bernie doesn't get in, as ironic as it sounds. They're trying to make sure, like, Biden doesn't get in. And to some extent, there's been a backlash against Beto O'Rourke. Again, I don't care because I think he's an inexperienced douchebag. So, like, the fact that he isn't going in doesn't upset me. But, like, I think within the problem is that the people they want to grab the nomination really are incompetent. Like, they're trying to give it to a Cory Booker. They're trying to give it to a Kamala Harris. They're trying to give it to a Tulsi Gabbard. They're trying to give it to an Elizabeth Warren. They're all fucking incompetent.
Yeah, what qualifies any of these people to be president?
Well, I mean
other than
they
just want the...
But they're senators.
What are they? Well, all right.
I mean, look...
No, you know why I reject that? Because the Libertarian ticket 2 years ago that we voted for was Gary Johnson, successful governor of New Mexico, a blue state, but he, as a libertarian, and Bill Weld, successful governor, Massachusetts, and for some reason they weren't taken seriously. They weren't paid. These are two former governors.
Right.
Now, since when is that not good enough? Carter was a governor, Reagan, Bush the younger, Clinton.
Well, governors make better presidents. It's more of a training ground. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you're a chief executive.
Right.
But the point is, that ticket was completely ignored.
Agreed.
And let me tell you something, I'll say it again. Gary Johnson and Weld would have been a better choice than
100%.
Trump and Pence or Hillary and that idiot Kane who she picked. My God,
but the thing is, you're right. I agree with you. But I was trying to highlight the fact that experience doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
It didn't matter for Obama. It didn't matter for Obama, right? And I mean, I know some people say he was a senator. He was a senator for 18 months, 16 of which he spent campaigning. So he really didn't have that experience.
Right, he had zero.
Right? So as little experience as Obama had, Trump had even less.
He had zero.
He has zero experience. And we see that lack of experience come into play. For all of you that are like, get rid of the swamp. We don't want professional politicians. Well, that's like saying, I don't want a doctor with experience. Or I don't want a mechanic who's ever fixed a car. All right? Maybe you'll get lucky and hit someone competent, but odds are you're not. okay? Because these things require repetition and experience. So, but apparently the country doesn't give a shit, because if you're Obama, you provide charisma, you provide hope. If you're Trump, you provide, I don't know, racism and false narratives, I don't know, whatever. But he was good at whatever he did, all right?
Well, it's the pseudo-patriotic.
Yeah, so it's the
America
nationalism
great
thing
again.
with no experience, right? No swamp, right? So I would not be in the least surprised, if the Democratic candidate will be worse than Trump, both in terms of experience, both in terms of ideas and platforms, because it seems that's where we're heading. Trump emerged from the Republican clown car in 2016. That was the phrase we used. Guess what? The Democratic clown car in 2020 is going to be even bigger.
Yeah.
They're already up to 19 candidates, which already beats the record of the 16 candidates the Republicans had last time around.
Right.
And that's 19 without Biden officially in, without a few more people that are probably
We're going to jump in. That guy Swalwell got in now.
I think that number's going to hit around 23, 24, to be honest with you, by the time 2020 rolls around. So when you have all these people, who's going to stand out? The biggest idiot is going to stand out. And for the Democrats, unfortunately, that'll mean the biggest socialist, the biggest communist, the biggest, give everything for free to everybody. And you're seeing that. You're seeing that already. Andrew Yang with his $1,000 a month to everybody, even if they don't work.
The Medicaid for all.
Medicaid for all
free
for
education.
Free education, that all of them say. Elizabeth Warren, any issue you bring up to her, she has a free government program. Same thing with Bernie. So, child care? Yep, have the government do it. Education? Have the government do it. Health care? The government. Elder care? The government. Fine.
You realize, even in the Green New Deal that Andrea AOC was pushing, and other Democrats do support. Some of them, a lot are against it. But,
yes.
The ones who do, there's provisions in it to have money for people who are unwilling to work.
That's Andrew
Now,
Yang.
could you think about that for a minute? Unwilling to work. You got to be kidding. The only way you can get away with that is if you are so independently wealthy that you're not a burden on the society and everybody else.
But then you don't need the payments.
You can sit around. Yeah, I know.
Then you don't need the payments.
But it's just ridiculous. So it's going to be. I mean, not only are the Democrats, they might have more than 25 candidates.
Okay.
Because you're going to have you know what happens. You might get a few more people who just jump in and go, well, Gillibrand and these people, they're going nowhere. Klobuchar, going nowhere. I'll jump in now and you might get somebody who's outside the political, like a Trump with zero experience.
Well, you might get that guy
idiot Mark Cuban who owns the Mavericks.
Well, also Howard Schultz. Don't forget, he wants to run as an independent,
which would hurt the Democrats.
But he's basically a Democrat. Before he admits he was a Democrat before he went to the independent side. So to me, though, you're going to see somebody ridiculous. And by the way, for you Republicans, let me give you this warning / prediction. Trump will probably win in 2020. Yeah. I think he might win again, just because it's so fractured on the other side. He may win again. But here's the problem. As of right now, he's destroyed the Republican Party. Okay? The Republican Party, as a party that stands philosophically opposed to liberalism, is dead. It won't come around anymore. It's dead. So what you're seeing is the death throes of the Republican Party. Because what Republican Party, and this goes back to the beginning with Baby Bush, even Papa Bush to some extent, but it's been getting worse. What kind of Republican Party has racked up the most debt of any administration, by the way? More than Obama, more than Bush. More than Obama and Bush added together. That's Trump. And for all you rubes that say, oh, at least he's got the economy humming, right? 4.5% growth, jobs. Guess what? With all that government spending, the economy should be running at 10% growth, right? It's like that old joke. You could have zero unemployment if the government just drafted everybody into the army, right? But why wouldn't that work? Because there would be nobody left that actually knew how to do anything. You're stealing from taxes to pay these people. It's the same thing here. Trump has racked up so much debt that the economy shouldn't be at 4.5%. Don't cheer yourselves at 4.5% growth just because Obama averaged 2.9. That's not an accomplishment. The accomplishment is for all this spending we're doing, we should be up near 7, 8, 10%, Larry. But we're not. Why? Because of the way he acts like a fucking liberal. Tariffs, subsidies. Oh my God!
The tariffs are awful.
And the subsidies. So the soybean farmers are like, you fucked us over with the China tariffs. He's like, no problem. Here's some subsidies.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is paying for those subsidies? Who's paying for those tariffs?
And soon no avocado.
And soon no avocados from Mexico.
Actually, you know what I'm waiting for now, as a potential segue. I'm waiting for him to come out and say, I love Kate Smith.
Yeah.
Love God bless her.
Yeah. Why not? So Larry's pulled me back because we said not too much time. So anyway, let's move on. Kate Smith. Now, Kate Smith, for those younger viewers, was an obese woman. And when I say obese, I mean like my size or bigger. Famous for singing God Bless America. So especially if you're a hockey fan.
Right.
You would see her, what was it, the Flyers? The
Flyers.
Explain, not the Flyer curse, the Flyer good luck charm.
The Flyer good luck charm, back in the 70s. But the Flyers were an expansion team into the NHL in 1967. And the first couple of years, like all expansion teams in sports, they stink. Okay? Now that has changed a little bit in hockey now because they had the first year team, the Vegas Golden Knights, and they went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. But usually, expansion team comes in, they stink. It takes time to build. And so the Flyers were pretty bad the first couple of years. And then I forget the guy's name, but he was like the vice president of the Flyers, not the guy Snyder who died. He was the GM. But he said that he was watching just a regular season game, and he goes, I noticed people were sitting for the national anthem, or talking, or
now, this is
like
the 70s.
Walking around. This is the 70s. This is around the 72, 73. And he goes, it really got to me. He goes, I really didn't like it. So he goes, I went and I spoke to the man. I said, look, how about if we change that up and we played God Bless America by Kate Smith? And it worked. Apparently, they played a recording of it and it belted it out, and the fans love it. Then they got her in person to show up the first time, like they made the playoffs or something. And she came and she sang it in Philly, and she's standing there center ice with the spotlight on, and she's really belting it out. The crowd went nuts.
Right.
And unfortunately, the Flyers went on to win.
Well, the Flyers' record, I think, every time she sang was ridiculous. It was something like 410-2 or something like that. It was like something ridiculous. So she was their good luck charm. And the Yankees here in New York, of course, played during the seventh inning stretch.
Oh, I've been at the stadium a million times. That's what they play, and they just do the recording. And you're like, God bless America.
Well, apparently, Larry, you're a racist cocksucker for liking Kate Smith. Apparently.
That's it, baby. Look at that.
So the Yankees, along with everybody else, the Flyers and everybody else, have decided to stop playing Kate Smith's rendition of God Bless America.
Yeah.
Why is that, Larry?
Well, in the case of the Yankees.
Yes.
Well,
everybody.
Yeah, I know, but in the case of the Yankees, they have to.
Why is that?
Because it's a very diverse crowd, and it's, they claim it's offensive. In hockey, you probably could have gotten away with it.
Why is it offensive?
Why is it offensive?
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Because they found some ditties that Kate Smith sang.
So back in the 30s, when Kate Smith was like a lean, mean, 250-pound machine, Larry, go ahead. Why don't you take the first one?
Okay.
The name of the song in 1931, by the way.
Okay, this was her first song. Now, the only thing I want to stipulate ahead of time: how did this not get found out until now?
Right.
With all the information on the internet and everything, everybody's searching for every.
Literally, it was a Yankees fan who found out and brought it to the attention of the team.
Yeah. So in 1931, she did a rendition of "That's Why Darkies Were Born," and the lyrics apparently.
Go ahead, Larry.
Someone had to pick the cotton. Someone had to plant the corn. Someone had to slave and be able to sing. That's why darkies were born.
See, that's okay. There was no one use of the N-word.
That's right. And it's okay because corn rhymes with born.
So they found this out about her. By the way, no joke. She did sing this. It's on film, actually. And then there was another one. And I'll take this one, Larry.
Go for it.
This is she had a 1933 recording of a song called Pickaninny Heaven. And the site we went to for this information doesn't even put the lyrics, but it does say the song asks colored children living in an orphanage to dream about a magical place with great big watermelons. Now, Pickaninny heaven. I mean, come on. No, so,
Now,
look,
do you think Pickaninny Heaven at the time, do you think they were talking about KFC? No, stop that.
That's
Awful.
horrible. No, but so there's 2 points to this. One is I can't speak for the that's why darkies were born.
Sure you can.
But Pickaninny Heaven, and actually I think I read this was allegedly. Now, let's also say that no one has found any evidence of racism on her part in the sense of the way she dealt with people. Right. So no one's come out and said she called me a nigger or I couldn't, she refused to shake my hand or none of that shit. It all relates to these 2 songs that the objection lies to. Now, by today's standards, and even maybe in the 30s, really unacceptable, right? But someone pointed out, and again, maybe they were defending her posthumously, I don't know, said that the song, which was co-written by a black man, I think it was That's Why Darkies Were Born, was actually satire to make fun of Southerners who actually believe that that's why African Americans were put on this earth, like basically to pick cotton and all that.
Yeah.
So while the song itself, now, I don't know, I'm not going to make a judgment on that, but I just want to throw that out there that some people have said that at least in the case of that song, it was a way of almost protest or satire in order to bring light to the situation that no, these are people. So I don't know.
You know what's interesting? I just thought of. I'm surprised since people are digging into all these things. I'm surprised nobody ever pointed out that the Marx Brothers said the same thing.
What?
There is, I think it's Duck Soup.
Okay.
Their movie. He plays Rufus T. Firefly.
Okay.
He's the president of Fredonia.
Okay.
And in it, he's speaking to that ridiculous Margaret Dumont and these 2 other people, and he goes, a man doesn't live that could call the Firefly a coward or something. He goes, the Fireflies were on the Mayflower, and he says something, the flies were on the fire, and he goes, and that's how darkies were born. He goes through like a whole thing, and then he says it, he goes, and that's why darkies were born, and then he kisses Margaret Dumont's hand, and he walks off this thing, like a whole thing, but I'm surprised that the people who
get offended easily.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I can think of is that's obviously a movie fiction, so nobody thought that was Groucho Marx's opinion.
Yeah.
But look, so the question I have right now is twofold. One, is there any way that she was possibly being satirical and trying to make, through satire, bring awareness to this?
It's possible.
It's possible. The other thing is, can she be judged by today's standards?
No, of course not. That's the argument I always make about people.
I mean, it's obvious when you look at people in the 1800s, right? Like, we joke a lot. Like, one of the movies we watch a lot and laugh at is Django Unchained, right? And if you watch Django Unchained, that movie has the N-word and the variations of the N-word every 5 seconds. But for the most part, it's understood that that's the way, even the heroes, that's the way they talked in that era. So you almost take it as an excuse to say, well, that's how they talked. Like, even people who were abolitionists used some of those phrases, right?
Yeah.
Is 1931 too recent, Larry?
Not to me. I mean, I think this is ridiculous. The business of taking people from the past and holding them up to the current standards.
Yeah.
I've always argued that's going to fail. That doesn't work for me.
What's the time frame?
Because
it's
impossible to know.
No, let me give you an example. Let's say you found out someone in the 50s that's still alive today had used that language very casually. Is that close enough or too far back in your opinion?
It's not, but I'm saying it's not even an issue of close or far back. This is how people were at a certain period of time.
Okay.
You know, it's like the assholes are all trying to get rid of Christopher Columbus.
Right.
There's a man in 1492, for God's sakes. I mean, look, did he treat some of the people who are indigenous to some of the islands? Like, did he treat them poorly? I'm sure he did. Okay, but the point is, I don't think you can take any from any period of time or reasonably. I mean, obviously, if somebody said something like 5 years ago, you might say, all right. But 1931, and you don't know the context
That's a different story. The context, I think, is missing. And again, I'm trying to be actually as open-minded as possible.
Oh, absolutely. But see, the problem is whenever you take people from the past and you use your current the standards are always changing.
Yes.
So they're always going to fail.
Agreed.
They're always going to fail. Like, for instance, Dr. King has a national holiday signed into law by Ronald Reagan. Okay. They sealed his FBI file for 44 years. Why did they seal his file for 44 years? You know why? Because Dr. King used a lot of language. He slept with white prostitutes. He did convert with people who were communists or radicals. He did a lot and some other stuff from what I understand. Now, you realize from the time that they did that, we're actually coming up on it. It might be 10 years from now, whatever. So you realize when they open that file, you're going to find out some shit about this guy. And in today's crazy world, and maybe add another 10 years on, I don't know that they would do this, but in theory, he could lose his national holiday because you don't know what's in that file. Once they open it up, as an example, you're going to find out some unsavory things, and that he was a man like anybody else. And people are a collection of everything you've done in your life, and everybody has shit. There are no perfectly nice, happy, but So when you take a Christopher Columbus or you take a Kate Smith, whenever you do this, they're always going to fail because the standards always.
Let me be devil's advocate.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. Like certainly in the case of someone like Christopher Columbus, colonization was the order of the day back then. That's how people acquired land, right? They would they would plant the flag. If they ran into the indigenous people, they killed them. That's what happened. I'm not saying it's good, but it happened. So to say someone did that at that time, like Columbus,
it was normal.
It was normal. Yeah. Although I heard Vermont is already canceling
they're going to cancel it.
Replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day, whatever. Yeah. So I get it in the case of that. But I think that the question of recency is important because I can excuse George Washington if, like, somebody finds some written evidence that he used the word nigger, for example.
Okay.
Does it make George Washington? Does it make Thomas Jefferson any less of a great man because he had slaves at the time as a southern landowner?
Right. Now, if you're talking like the people on the radical left, they'll say yes.
They
want the statues down, they want everything down. But that's all part of their trying to deconstruct this society.
Agreed.
I think it's a nothing.
No, agreed. So at that time, you can look at a Jefferson and say, look at what he did, and look at what he wrote, and especially if you're a libertarian, look at how he wanted to limit government. And he had a slave, by all accounts treated them well, but whatever. You could go back and say, look, they had slavery back then.
Right.
And no one's arguing for it now, and maybe they were on the cusp of a societal change. Fine. What if you were KKK in 1920, like Trump's father is alleged to have been? Mm-hmm. Is that too recent to excuse? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Remember, the KKK started out just as a social club.
Understood.
For waspy idiots in Tennessee.
Yeah, but
who were like throwing water balloons and like that kind of stuff.
But by 1920 in New York, it wasn't for that.
Oh, really? Okay.
So my point, and I honestly don't know the answer. At what point does recency come into play? Like someone on TV used this flippantly, and it kind of fits. Like, what's the statute of limitations?
Right.
Like, when at some point has enough time gone by where you say that person was a product of their era?
Right.
Right? And if what he did was normal, then you can't fault him for it. You might find a hero who bucked the trend, right? Yeah. So, like in the 1800s, you can come up with, what's her face? Oh, Jesus, I can't remember her name. The suffragette. The woman's right person. Oh, Jesus Christ, I can't remember. I've got a brain freeze right now. Somebody help me.
Susan B. Anthony.
Susan B. Anthony. Thank you, Phil. Susan B. Anthony.
Okay.
Susan B. Anthony was an abolitionist.
Right.
And she hid runaway slaves on the Underground Railroad on their way to Canada. Like, that woman was extraordinary in that sense, because not only was she a feminist, not only did she stand up for suffrage rights and all that at a time when no one did,
right.
She helped runaway slaves at a time when very few people did, even the other abolitionists.
Well, if she was really a nice person, she wouldn't have sent them to Canada.
But what I'm trying to get at, you look at her and you say, wow, she was extraordinary, especially in the context of her times. Mm-hmm. But the person who maybe had turned in a runaway slave, was he a scumbag in that sense? Because that was the law back then. You had to turn in runaway slaves. So, it becomes difficult for me to your point, contextualize some of this stuff. Right. And for me, this Kate Smith thing is really on that border, man, because I can't totally excuse it. But if someone explained it to me and said, look, she was really actually using satire. Or if someone came to me and said, look, she was a 20-year-old girl in entertainment, and this was a paycheck. Someone paid her to sing this. So her singing this may not have reflected her views, but she was doing it for a paycheck. And I mean, at what point do you start saying, I think it's a difficult question. It's not as easy as yes or no.
Well, I'm okay with it. So.
You're okay with what? Just to be clear.
Well, I'm okay with that she said these things in the 1930s.
Okay.
I mean, it was a very different world, and they were very different people. And like I said, if you hold them up to today's standards, they're always going to fail. Who's going to pass? Who's going to pass? Like, for instance, here's a good example. In the 1990s, Bill Clinton faced impeachment, Monica Lewinsky for a blowjob, blah, blah, blah. Right. Back then, just 20 years, Democrats were defending him like crazy. What's the big deal? Come on, blah, blah, blah. Now, Gillibrand was running, or was it Gillibrand, whatever? Gillibrand, running for president, okay. She said, about 6-7 months ago, whatever, she said, in light of everything, Bill Clinton should have stepped down. Right. Like, just to give you an idea of how things have changed. 20 years ago, every Democrat, male and female, in the country said this is a big nothing. Yeah. What's the big deal? Only Hillary Clinton has the right to be annoyed because he's cuckolded her in front of the world, Now, 20 years later, she's saying he should have stepped down. A few other Hollywood people, not so cool with it. And if you notice in the last campaign, even for his wife, Bill Clinton, very, very invisible. Not out on the campaign trail, not allowed to speak. Now, part of that is he's lost it a little bit. He's a little older, he's not as sharp. All right. But a lot of that was they didn't want to have him out there and have that front and center that he did this to the young woman, and you got the Me Too movement and all this stuff going on. So, look, and the reason I say it this way is, look, you and I are talking, we're giving our opinions, and we're on this show, and 20 years from now, somebody might look back and go, these two fucking assholes, look what they said.
They may do that next week.
Yeah, but the point is, do you really want to be held up to the standards of people
no,
100 years?
I understand, and I think when it's that obvious a case, 100 years ago, 200 years ago versus now, I think it's obvious. I think when you're talking about 60 years ago,
is that close, though? 60 years? Well, it's not 60.
No, in this case,
in the 1930s.
It's closer to 90.
This is 90,
No, it's just that some people pointed out that you may have had people who were alive at that time when she sang it. I mean, when did Kate Smith die? Wasn't it in the 2000s?
Yeah,
I think. Anyway, so my point is there could have been people alive at those Yankee games who may have, as young kids, heard that song. So is that recent enough? I don't know. But it's just something to think about. All right, Larry, let's change gears a little bit. Because Phil loves the segments. Yeah. And right now it's time for that new game show that's sweeping the nation. Crazy game show sweeping the nation called Who Said It? That's right. Who said it? Larry, who said it? The great game show.
Mussolini.
No. We got to give Phil credit for this.
Yes.
Segment Phil. So this week, in the battle for who said it, two mid-20th century heavyweights, Larry. Today being April 20th, 420, it's not all about weed on 420, Larry.
Okay.
There are other important things on 420.
Heavyweights.
Yeah. First of all, talk about the first heavyweight on 420, Big Fat John. Today's my birthday on 420. So thank you. 420, right? But another big heavyweight whose birthday is 420, Der Fuhrer himself, Big Adolf. That's right. One of our contestants is Adolf Hitler.
You sure you want to have out there that you share a birthday?
Yeah, well, I think people would have figured it out by now. But we have in one corner Adolf Hitler, in the other one, his main opponent through much of the middle of the 20th century, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR. So today's contest, Adolf Hitler versus FDR.
Socialist versus National Socialist.
Yes, sir. All right. The first one. Who said it? Adolf Hitler or Franklin Delano Roosevelt? I acknowledge only one nobility, that of labor. Who said it? Adolf Hitler or FDR?
I'm going to go with Hitler.
Larry's correct. Adolf Hitler did in fact say, I only acknowledge one nobility, that of labor. So score one for Larry so far. All right, Larry, that's one for you. The next one. Who said it? Adolf Hitler or FDR? We want a society with no castes, no ranks, and you must not allow such ideas to grow within you. Who said that? You want to hear it again? Or did you get it?
Go ahead, read it one more time.
We want a society with no castes, no ranks, and you must never allow these ideas to grow within you. Who said that? Hitler or FDR?
I'm going to go with Hitler again.
Larry's hot today. Yes, indeed. That was Der Fuhrer, showing amazing open-mindedness with that quote. All right.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised.
Yeah, you got it right. Okay. This next one. All work undertaken should be useful. Not for a day, not for a year, but useful in the sense that it affords permanent improvement in living conditions, or that it creates a new future with new wealth for the nation. Who said that? FDR or Hitler?
I'm going to say FDR.
Correct! Larry is on fire this week.
Fuego.
That was FDR.
Yeah.
All right. The next quote. Who said this? FDR or Hitler? There is no question that Mussolini is really interested in what we are doing, and I am much interested and deeply impressed by what he has accomplished and by his evidenced, honest purpose of restoring Italy to its greatness. Who said that? Adolf Hitler or FDR?
I'm going to say FDR said that.
Yes, that was FDR, in fact, showing much love for Mussolini. Yes, that was FDR. Larry's running the table so far.
Wow.
Last question for him to hit 100%. Adolf Hitler or FDR? Socialist. What do I mean by that? First, the word social meaning, in the main, social equality. A socialist is one who serves the common good without giving up his individuality or personality or product of his personal efficiency. This adopted term socialist has nothing to do with Marxist socialism. Marxism is anti-property. True socialism is not. A bit lengthy, but who said that? FDR or Hitler?
I'm going to say Hitler.
Larry ran the table, ladies and gentlemen. That was Uncle Adolf who said that.
Look at that.
And Larry, thank you for playing. Excellent gamesmanship. 5-0, very good, ran the table. But again, as always, this little quiz is intended to teach us a lesson. And the lesson here is there is no difference between socialism and Nazism. For those of you out there that seem to think that you get upset when someone points out that Nazi is German shorthand for Nationalist Socialism, or however you pronounce it, National Socialism is no different than the socialism that FDR had put out there. And as a matter of fact, let me read you a quote. And this is a quote from the New York Times in July 1933. And go look it up. The quote is, "I have sympathy for Mr. Roosevelt because he marches straight towards his objectives over Congress, over lobbyists, and over bureaucracy." Hitler went on to note that he was the sole leader in Europe who expressed understanding of the methods and motives of President Roosevelt. And this was in 1933. Hitler expressing admiration for Roosevelt basically being an authoritarian cocksucker trying to get his way in the United States, and felt kinship towards him. When you look at socialism, Larry, right now you have a lot of socialists running around, and they'll say, well, we're not socialists, we're not communists, we're democratic socialists. Well, what about the Nazis? Fuck you, the Nazis weren't socialists.
Yeah, sure
they were Nazis, right? That's the answer you get. Please, National Socialism. The only difference is that whereas socialists use class as their definitions, right, for things, the Nazis just used race.
Right.
It was the same concept, just instead of using economic reasons for, stratifying people, they used race. They blamed the Jews, they blamed gypsies, whatever, right? Yeah. So you have to understand, those socialists out there, that there is no difference between, it's just a matter of slight degree. And let me also point this out. Both Hitler and Roosevelt placed their own citizens in concentration camps. We all know what Hitler did.
Right.
How many of you remember that Roosevelt, without warrant, without trial, just by executive order, rounded up thousands of Japanese Americans, people who were born here, U.S. citizens, and threw them into camps, took away their property, took away basically any rights they had to appeal, just threw them into camps. Now, he didn't kill them.
Right, and they called them detention centers.
Right, they called them detention centers, but he didn't kill them. But he basically said, I don't like the way you look, you're going in jail, basically.
Right.
Right? That's only 1 degree less than what Hitler did.
Right.
Right? He didn't do it to the Germans, German Americans, according to meaning FDR. He didn't do it to Italian Americans.
Right.
Right?
That was the argument.
Why? Because they looked like everybody else.
Right.
They were white. Asians, Japanese were very easy to pick out, right? Theoretically. So what they do? They put them in one camp. So when you socialists out there today say democratic socialism is better than socialism, it's not the same as Nazism, it's exactly the same. Here you have two socialists from the middle of the 20th century, practically identical, Larry. It's literally degree that was only different. So keep that in mind. And I also point out, Hitler democratically elected. The German people voted for him. Like, people forget that. They think that Hitler, like Larry, led some sort of revolution or something.
Right, he didn't just take over.
He got elected, and he basically waited for von Hindenburg to die, the president, and he took over. Right? So keep that in mind. All right, good game, Larry.
Jackson, that's what I say.
Phil.
As an Asian man,
yes.
If FDR was in front of me, I would have pushed him out of his stupid wheelchair.
There you go.
Wow.
Phil, not fucking around, Larry.
Well, there may be something to it. Because look, as I've talked about, my stepfather is Japanese, and he has long held, he goes, they would never even consider dropping atomic bombs on Germany or Italy.
Yes, true.
He told me that. He goes, Japan was easy.
Yes.
They looked different, they were evil, they were Pearl Harbor, and blah, blah, blah. It was easier just to lay it on them.
Although tactically it would be hard to bomb Germany with a nuclear weapon and not get fallout, say, to France.
Or even Italy.
Yeah, or even Italy, same thing.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think the perception of people
and
the nature of it
Agreed. Truman definitely thought he could get away with it because they were Asians, absolutely. But also, again, I just want to point out, like Phil said, there's a lot of people in this country, Larry, walking around like really thinking, they'll go so far as to say the greatest president in U.S. history was FDR.
Oh, please.
Or they'll put him in their top 5. They'll say Washington, Lincoln, FDR, and if you're lucky, they'll throw Reagan in there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. FDR was a horrible president. And, first of all...
It had 4 terms.
So here's the thing. All right, everyone. Sort of in line with what we said about FDR being a socialist and all his nonsense. Larry, unions. Unions. Yeah. Ready? You got the right frame of mind for this?
Sure.
So unions, right here in New York, there's evidence of this, and you see it. 31,000 Stop and Shop workers are on strike right now. The union, let me look this up. The union is the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union. They're the ones on strike, and they have 31,000 of their members out on strike, Larry. Now, this is becoming it's becoming typical of, say, a 70s labor dispute, where you have the corporate bosses say, go fuck yourselves. We're taking away your health care if you keep this up. Fuck you, and you've got the striking workers doing shit like they all go out to the supermarkets, because Stop and Shop is a supermarket. They'll go out to the supermarkets at 5 a.m. They'll park their cars and they'll fill up the entire parking lot so regular customers can't go shop all day. Right? And then, of course, you've got the union lines where anybody who crosses it is a scab and all that. They get beat up, right? So, Larry, interestingly enough, union membership has actually risen the last couple of years.
Yeah, for the first time.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time. And honestly, there's a lot of people who were confused because they thought that the Janus ruling, the Supreme Court ruling recently, which ruled that unions cannot force non-union members to pay union dues in order to work somewhere, even if they weren't members of the union. And a lot of people thought that this would, in essence, choke off a lot of the unions, what little power they had left. But in actuality, their membership has gone up, although interestingly, their money revenue has gone down.
Right.
Because they're not collecting all those fees from people that aren't part of their membership. Now, what's interesting here is a lot of people are saying, the reason is because Janus works on the federal level, but then a lot of states have enacted union protection laws to sort of compensate for that, especially in blue states, which are 27 of them. So it's interesting to see that thing. But let me ask you this. In general, do you support unions and the concept of unions in the marketplace? Do you feel that this is a libertarian? How should libertarians feel about unions?
Okay, as a libertarian, you should probably say, if you want to be in a union and you want to unionize, go right ahead.
Right.
Okay. If you think that you're stronger through collective bargaining, fine. Like the teachers definitely in this city, in this state, believe that. Okay, that's fine. If you're asking me personally, I'm not in favor of unions. I don't like, it's kind of like that joke on The Simpsons. They had that one time where they make a joke about the guy goes, well, we're in the unions and we're here to protect the little guy, this big capitalist guy like you. And he's like yelling at Mr. Burns, but then one day we'll become too big and fat and then we'll take advantage of our own people and become obsolete. Like he makes a joke. I understand that some people feel that this is better for them, but look, I think that unions are pretty much an anathema to a free market system where you should be allowed to go anywhere you want, get any job you want, and I don't believe in keeping people out of a job, not just because of the usual race, gender, any of those things, okay? I think that's ridiculous, but to also tell people, well, you're not in a union. So this is a union job and you can't have a job. You're now telling somebody who's qualified for a job you can't have a job. Right. You're not in our union. You're preventing them from earning a living and taking care of their family or whatever. So to me, unions, I think they should go the way of the dodo. But the problem is, and I will say this, obviously, you do have a problem with many companies, like John was just saying. Right. You got the guys, the head of the companies, and to me, these guys actually are giving capitalism, the best system there is, a bad name. If I was running a company, I'm not kidding, I would treat everybody there like family. I would take care of you. I would make sure that you got a decent package of money and health care and maybe some stock options, whatever works. I would want you to be happy because my bread and butter, my money is being made off you. Whatever you're doing, you're making me wealthy. You're making me rich. And hopefully, in the course of it, if you don't become rich, but at least you have a very good standard of living. So I don't understand that kind of thing. To me, that business of like, well, fuck you, and you know, you want healthcare, get it. Oh, you want more vacation days, get out of here. Like, all those things. Like I've worked in corporate America pretty much my entire life, and I have to tell you, the more they've expanded, like those little benefits, of like a vacation day and sick days, and the happier actually the employees are. Well, they really are.
And that's the point I think that you hit on, which is, look, I would never put my career in the hands of a union ever. Okay, but I agree with you in the sense that if people want to collectively bargain, they should be allowed to. As a libertarian, they should be allowed to. And there may be situations where the employer actually prefers collective bargaining to individual bargaining. Like I could think, for example, say in Detroit, where you have these thousands of assembly line workers, that maybe management doesn't want to deal with interviewing 6,000 people for exactly the same position. You know, it's sort of like you're farming it out to the unions, you're dealing with just 5 guys sitting across you at a negotiation table, and fine, if that's what you want to do. But the problem I have is that twofold. One is that unions, and you said this, are exclusionary by nature. Okay? Unions are not in the business of making conditions better in general. They're not in the business of making it better for the average man. What they're in the business of is anybody that they accept, anybody who's a dues-paying member, that's who they care about. So when you think of the teachers' union, for example, they don't give a fuck about the kids. They care about their members. That's all there is to it, all right? So there's that about it, very exclusionary. The second thing I don't like is that government protects unions. Now, I know you're going to say, like, what the fuck are you talking about? How can that be? It's true, and I'll tell you why. Because if it weren't true, the CEO of Stop and Shop could turn around and say, all 31,000 of you motherfuckers are fired. Yeah. I can find other people who are unemployed right now who would be willing to take the offers that I give them.
Right.
But he's not allowed to do that. There's laws against that, which I don't understand. Right. I don't understand why more libertarians are not pounding the table to say, unions, fair enough. But why is the government preventing management from taking action? Now, again, I agree with you. And I think, though, rather than laws being in place, the free market takes care of, if you're a company that treats its employees shitty, guess what you're going to end up with? Shitty employees. Because only the most incompetent people will put up with your shit in a free market, meaning that you can have free competition. Anyone's allowed, there aren't these barriers to entry into the market, regulations and licensing and bullshit like that, right? If I run a store and my policy is I pay you half what anybody else will pay you, who am I going to get? I'm going to get the most incompetent workers to come work for me. Because the first company that comes along that says, I'll pay you a better wage and I'll treat you better and I'll give you an extra vacation day.
I'm gone.
Right. Well, how do you think that these healthcare benefits through employers came about? Like I say this to people and they think I'm lying. When Larry and I came out of college, it wasn't a given that if you got a job at a bank or an insurance company that you got health insurance.
You got benefits. Yeah.
You got benefits.
That was a maybe.
That was a maybe. You had to earn those. And here's the thing. To Larry's point, companies learn. If you treat your people better, they won't leave. And the company would much rather have an employee stay there because there's a learning curve, there's a cost of acquisition.
They're more productive.
Right? They're more productive. But just from an outlay perspective, it costs money to hire new people, right? Especially in professional settings, right? Mm-hmm. So they learn very quickly. You give them some time off. You don't bust their balls about lunch hour. It's like things like that, right? And then now all of a sudden, it's pretty much par for the course that a company will give you healthcare benefits, 2 to 4 weeks vacation, depending on your industry, that you get a lunch hour paid for the most part. If you're a professional, Larry, we've seen this, you can work from home, right? Oh, sure. They'll say, because of the internet, it's empowered people, work from home, we don't have to keep it. So the free market takes care of a lot of this. The better you treat people, the better workers you get, more productivity, the happier they are. The one thing I will say, though, is I don't believe that unions should exist for public sector. Okay. Meaning like for government jobs and stuff. Right, municipal jobs. You shouldn't have unions, and I'll tell you why. The government has no vested interest in good faith negotiation with unions. Public unions, right? Mm-hmm. Why is that? It's not their money. The government, it's not their money that they're negotiating for. It's your tax. They'll just raise your taxes.
Yeah.
So every time the teachers union thinks they've won a victory because they got a 5% increase, and people are like, yeah, they deserved it, this, that. Who pays for that?
Yeah, the taxpayer.
Taxpayer pays for that. Government doesn't give a shit. So how do you feel about that, though? Like banning public unions?
Well, banning them? Well, no.
I think they should go if they're public.
The thing that always bothers me with those kind of jobs is you can't fire anyone. You know, there's always that business of like, I have a friend who remained anonymous, was a teacher, and even he'll tell you some of the teachers.
Well, you have to commit a felony.
You have to do something really horrendous for them to go, okay, you're out.
And I know what you're talking about, by the way.
Yes.
And he's told me some stories.
Yes.
Because this person, again, not saying his name, not saying even what school district or anything, he basically goes, I've seen people literally get into fistfights.
Yeah.
And all they get is why don't you go home for the next week?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even a slap on the wrist. So you really do have to commit these sort of felonies in order to get fired.
You have to do something pretty bad to get fired. I have a problem with people who are incompetent or bad at their job, or maybe you started out, you were good at one point, and you became bad, whatever it is. But if you do something,
and they're protected,
and yes, if you should not be protected from being the famous Donald Trump, you're fired. You should always be that, and believe it or not, liberals, it makes you a better employee and a better worker if you have to worry about it a little. Because if you don't have to worry about it, you can slack off and be a slob. But if you have to worry, like if I don't perform, you know, it's like the old Ghostbusters joke. When Dan Aykroyd tells Bill Murray, he goes, "You haven't been in the private sector." He goes, "They demand results." He goes, "You've been working in the public sector." Yeah.
So really, that is something to keep in mind. So again, from a libertarian perspective, I could take I would rather just not ever leave my fate to someone else, to be honest. Especially someone I didn't know. But okay, Larry.
Okay.
We're coming up towards the end of the show.
Yeah. So,
any last words you want to throw in there?
No douche of the week.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Oh, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to feed him a softball here. I'm trying to.
Well, then, in this case,
as opposed to my cock, which I usually do.
Yes. Then in that case, I'm the douche of the week because I didn't pick up on that. So, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the drum roll. Douche of the week.
The douche of the week. I know we promised we wouldn't talk anymore about Donald Trump.
Right.
But very quickly, we all know about Trump and his promise to build a border wall.
Right.
Okay. He's been down there a lot now. He's been assessing the walls. Right. And he has a lot of supporters. Now, John is absolutely right that he is kind of destroying the Republican Party. But there's a certain amount of Republicans, like Sessions, who loved him right away and backed him.
Right.
And one of his biggest supporters has been California Republican Duncan Hunter. Now, Duncan Hunter, Congressman, yeah. But he is, without a doubt, I mean, this guy is
a douchebag.
I don't want to say that because he used to be a Marine, and I don't know if he'll come looking for us.
Fuck the Marines. I don't give a shit about the Marines. Fuck the Marines.
Sorry, Juno Lara's modicum of respect.
I don't fuck the Marines.
Okay, but anyway, as part of his, here's the funny thing. First off, this guy is so stupid. Okay,
How stupid is he?
How stupid is he? Okay, he's in trouble right now.
Yeah.
He's being accused of taking $250,000 of campaign funds
a mere bag
and using it on personal needs. He took a trip to Italy with his family. He tried to visit a naval base while he was there, and so he could pass it off as like politics. But they wouldn't let him in, and they called him an idiot. So then there's a whole list.
Wait a second. Did the Navy call the Marine?
No, yeah, they called him an idiot. So now there's a list of things that he and his wife spent money on. This campaign money. So he's being accused of doing this, but he wants to still he's all for Trump and the wall, and So he went to Yuma, Arizona, not in his state. He went to Yuma, Arizona the other day. You can see this on YouTube or any of your social, and he found a part of a wall that he called, this is part of the Great Wall that's keeping, he said, international criminals, terrorists, and other non-white that he doesn't like. Let's face it, it's all code language. Okay. So he climbs into the wall and he goes through onto the other side, right? Through, like, I guess he found like a hole in the wall.
Holographic.
Yeah, holographic. So now Duncan Hunter does this, and whatever press was covering goes, see, this is how easy it is to get from Mexico into the United States.
Right.
Like a good point, right? Except for one thing. It turns out that the Mexican border was right across this little river about 75 to 100 feet away from him.
Right.
And he actually was still in the United States. Now, he's getting abused for this, which is what drove me crazy. How stupid is this guy? He didn't even know. He didn't check it out. He did nothing. So he basically went, like, look, I'm in the United States right now. If I get up and I go over there, I'm still in the United States. He climbed through a wall, but apparently he really thought he was in Mexico.
Well, that's because he's a Trump acolyte.
Yeah.
He's a Trump group.
This is the epitome
Yes.
of being like
A Trump group.
also a political hack, and it's stupid. Then the person who's running against them, the Democrat, is Amar Campanaglia. Okay, now apparently, yeah.
I'm sure Larry butchered that day.
Yes, Campanaglia, fuck you. Because you're a Democrat, I don't care. Now apparently this person already ran against Duncan and lost to him, I guess, in a previous election. He's running against him again, and had pointed out that had he actually gone into Mexico, he'd be in violation of his parole.
But he's a Marine.
Here's a Marine and a congressman making his big point about Donald Trump and the wall and why we need a wall to keep all these people out of the country. It's so stupid. The wall is stupid. But you have to see the footage. If we could roll it. You've got to see. There's a congressman, for God's sake. And he's climbing through a wall, and he crunches up his legs, and he goes through, and then he goes, see?
What a douchebag.
What a douchebag. And he thought he was in Mexico on top of everything else. I don't know. I didn't want to just keep picking Democrats and liberals and other progressives.
Well, you're not supposed to. It's like a douchebag. Yeah.
Right. So, unfortunately, for Mr. Hunter, you have to be this week's douchebag, and I can't wait to see what comes out of all this, because he runs in a very conservative district.
Okay.
But he could lose now.
Why?
Because he's become so unpopular.
Why? Trump, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to tell you, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. Duncan Hunter could go take a shit on the wall and like literally drop trowel, spread his cheeks, and like drop a deuce, and no one would think twice about it. A deuce, yeah. Because no one would think twice about it thanks to Trump. Think about it. We have a president who was caught on tape saying, grab her by the pussy. We have a president who goes on tape saying, I'm fucked. They're investigating me. We have all this shit on them. And all these groups just go out, it's all fake news. And Jesus put Trump here to lead us to the promised land. And again, I can't emphasize that there is a significant chunk of this country for whom that is, Larry, a fact.
Yeah.
That Jesus picked this asshole, Trump, out of all the people Jesus could have picked and God could have picked to lead you into the promised land.
This is why you have to keep religion and politics separate.
Absolutely.
Because if that's Jesus' pick, fuck you, God. John went after the Marines.
I went after the Marines.
So I got a one-up and by going after God.
There you go.
Fuck you, God.
Oh, shit. What? Double down. Damn. I'm not doing that. I'm actually moving away from it in case of thunderbolt.
Go right ahead. Hey, Marines.
All right. Now that we've alienated everybody in our audience. All right.
Well, not Kate Smith.
Oh, shit. Phil, help me. We lost control of the show.
Who said it?
All right. Look. Okay. Larry, it's been fun, I guess. But anyway, listen, time for us to move along a little bit. It's the end of the program, but don't despair. We'll be back again next week with more of the Riot. But until that point, this has been your host, Big Fat John.
And Judo, Larry.
And Phil.
And Phil. Peace, bitches.
He likes Kate Smith and says, fuck God.